Hey, good afternoon. It's Bo from BEAU'D Not Broken, and we are here in Murray, Utah, the United States. We're going to talk to Marcy in a few minutes, but I wanted to thank everybody for watching. Want to make sure that you got the link to yesterday's little broadcast. Team Austin, Austin needs all the help you can get. The Children of the Earth website is also up there. On Facebook, on my other social media sites, and hopefully you will go to that and help. I think they're trying to put a team together for some kind of a big fundraiser in June 11th. So I'm going to sign up. Hopefully folks out there that are watching this will sign up as well. You're watching The Daily Bend, and this is where we have people on. We talk about faith and courage and endurance. We talk about people's lives, and we talk about from their point of view and how we can help each other through a lot of the adversities that we have or a lot of the things that we do. And Marcy here is one that is going to be a very interesting person, and she's doing a lot of different types of things for a lot of different types of people. So stay tuned, stay on the channel. Again, we upload these every week. I don't think we've updated the website for a little while, but hopefully Christian will be able to do that, or I'll be able to do that here real quick. So without further ado, Marcy, thanks for, I'm not really good with this selfie stick. So the lighting in here is really good. So gosh dang, see, you look very nice. Look at your teeth, all nice. Say hi.
Hi everyone.
Marcy, tell us about yourself, and then I'll tell everybody why I kind of wanted you on the show. So
Okay.
Go ahead.
So my name is Marcy Hehnly. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. I grew up in Lancaster County, which is pretty much home of all the Amish folks. So
Oh yes.
I always get asked if I'm Amish, and the answer is no. But I just grew up in that community.
No, she's not. I can get.
Let's see. I went in the military back in 1993. So at that point, I joined the United States Army, and my first official duty station was Korea. So I moved after basic and AIT to South Korea, where I lived for almost a year.
Wow.
And then after that, I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia. So I ended up in Columbus, Georgia for a few years. And then from there, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. So when I moved to Atlanta, I just kind of took a leap of faith. I know we focus a lot on faith here.
Right.
And it was one of those deals where I had just gotten divorced and really didn't have a whole lot, and I just knew I didn't want to go back to Pennsylvania because, to me there wasn't a whole lot of industry or jobs that I was interested in. So I ended up getting hired with a police department just north of Atlanta. It was called Cobb County Police Department, and they had about 600 officers at the time with the police department. So I took a leap of faith, prayed a lot about it, and I was like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to go. And packed up my dogs, moved to Atlanta. Didn't know one person, so it was a little scary because when you transition from military life to civilian life, especially when you're on your own and you don't know anybody, it makes it pretty scary. You don't know when that paycheck's coming in, how much it's going to be, your benefits, everything you're used to.
We'll talk a little bit about a female in law enforcement too. So here you are, female in the military as well, but that's a little more, I think, we mainstream than people think it is. But
yeah.
Also, then you go into the police world as a female as well. What was that like?
Yeah, so because I transitioned from the Army to policing, and it's a paramilitary organization.
Right.
For me, it was easy. However, I went through the police academy. There was one other female in my class. We had about 25 people in our class, and only one was female. And she came from a job where she had worked in childcare. So childcare, yes.
Okay.
So it was very different being in the academy with her because obviously, there's so few females in law enforcement. In fact, there's only 10% of law enforcement population nationwide that are female. And so transitioning for me it was pretty easy simply because I'd come out of the military, but it was a lot more difficult for her because she was non-military. I kind of had been used to working around a lot of men, so for me it was pretty easy, and I just, had to prove myself.
Right.
Half of the folks that were in our academy were prior military, half weren't. So it was easier to connect with those that were military, just because we're kind of like-minded, no matter what branch you're in.
Right. Right.
So
how did so that was kind of a how long were you a police officer?
So 10 years I served at Cobb County Police Department.
Long enough. Way long enough.
Long enough. I worked in a very diverse community. We had 4 precincts at the time. Later we expanded on to 5 precincts at the time.
Right.
But the one that I was working at was the busiest. It had most of the crime and most of the shootings and most of the stabbings and most of the gangs. So I worked as a patrol officer for quite a while. And then I had a really good time. I loved the job. And then I decided I wanted to be a trainer, so I became a field training officer. So as new officers were coming in, they'd ride with me for a little bit. I'd train them. Some of them were great, some of them not so great.
Right.
So, it's definitely takes.
That's management. You're definitely in management when you're field training. Let me identify what we're doing. This is BEAU'D Not Broken, the Daily Bend, and we're talking to Marcy. We talk to people talking about their own lives and some of the challenges, the successes, and the things that go on in life. Might help somebody along the way. A female, been in the military, been in law enforcement. Go ahead and continue your story, but the question I do have for you as far as law enforcement is, I used to get a lot of questions myself being in it, but women in the profession, what do you tell young women that want to be in that profession? What do you tell them? Yeah,
the first thing I tell them is don't get your honey where you get your money. One thing that we see a lot is, unfortunately, you'll have relationships on the job, and sometimes that affects your work.
Right.
And so one of my suggestions was always to date outside of our department. You want to keep the job, and you want to gain the respect of people that you work with. It's already hard enough as a female officer to gain respect, but you don't want a label attached to you either.
Right.
So that was always my first thing. And then I would sometimes have people ask me to talk to some of the newer females about that stuff.
Right.
After I was a field training officer, I actually moved into narcotics for a while and worked undercover. And then after that, I moved to do the hiring and recruiting. So I really had a heavy emphasis on hiring females and minorities, because that was one of the reasons I was put in the job that was given to me.
How do you feel about everything that's going on? I mean, well, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about what's going on?
Presently?
Yeah, presently in law enforcement, over the last year, there's goods and there's bads, but how do you look at the whole thing?
Yeah, so I am the Western Region Director for a nonprofit called Project Overwatch, and we advocate for law enforcement and firefighters. And so one of the reasons our organization started was because of the Ferguson events and other events that have happened. One of the things I always tell my students is when we start critiquing and what I call armchair quarterbacking situations they might see on TV, one of the things I say is media puts a spin on everything.
Right.
Okay, so you're always going to get different opinions. The other thing I say is when we talk about use of force, you weren't there. You weren't the officer.
Right.
You can't make that decision. So don't be so quick to judge the actions of an officer unless it was you, simply because I give the comparison when I was a training officer. I'm a female officer and I'll have a male officer. Okay, we're both going to respond differently to maybe the same situation.
Correct.
Simply because I'm a female and I may feel intimidated quicker, faster. I may move to a different level of force before my male counterpart. So I always tell my students, don't be quick to judge, because in every job there are immoral folks, there are bad decisions that are made. You can look at the medical field, you can look at someone working at Walmart and they make a bad decision. The catch is that law enforcement officers, we just get critiqued faster because we have to make split-second decisions. And it's difficult to make those split-second decisions, especially when you know it could affect someone's life in the long term.
And people don't really realize what a difficult job it is. I mean, there's not a, that's not to take away from the scrutiny and those that are maybe anti-police. I think they need to look inside, and that there's no job where you can take someone's civil rights or their life, for that matter. There's no other job like that. Maybe maybe a doctor. I mean, you're taking their life, or you're giving them life, whatever it might be. But we scrutinize for the sheer reason, and that a lot of people don't understand that it's a daunting task, and it happens, like you said, in seconds.
Right.
In seconds.
Yeah.
So the whole field training officer thing kind of sparked your love of teaching and all that kind of stuff. And
actually no. When I was doing the recruiting and the hiring, I got asked to go speak at a university.
Uh-huh.
And so while I was there, I had my what I call my aha moment. I had never in my life thought about teaching. I was like, I'm going to be a police officer. I love this job. I love helping people. Even if I only help one person,
right?
Then that's okay. That's
right.
I've done my job. So I left that presentation and I said, this is the job for me. And pretty much on the East Coast, you have to have a PhD to teach full-time in a university. But once I had made that decision, I thought, well, let me teach part-time first, see if I like it.
Right.
And so I started teaching part-time at a local technical college, and I ended up loving the job. So I ended up going back for my PhD, and somehow, by the grace of God, I was able to obtain the degree, and then I started putting in applications all throughout the United States. I didn't have anything holding me down. So I ended up getting a job offer in Kentucky, and I got a job offer here in Utah at the same time. So I weighed the pros and cons of each, and I decided to move to Utah.
And you picked Utah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'd never been here in my life, just like, kind of moving to Atlanta.
It is a
20
beautiful
years
place,
prior.
though.
I didn't know one person here, and I have no family here.
Right.
And talk about taking yet another leap of faith.
Sure.
You have to, my pastor used to say, you have to get uncomfortable to be comfortable.
Right.
And that always resonates with me in everything I do.
It takes a lot of courage to kind of move around by yourself and kind of take that whole, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So you are currently, your position at UVU?
Yeah, my position is I'm an assistant professor of criminal justice at Utah Valley University.
Great. And for everybody here in Utah and around the country, UVU has just kind of come out of not the closet, but they are probably one of the premier universities around, and their criminal justice program is one that's exceptional as well. So what else have you been doing? Obviously being a police officer, being a teacher, all that kind of stuff. Tell us a little bit about the sexual assault stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's really, as you know, sexual assault, sexual predators, per capita around here in Utah, we have quite a few, and it's usually family-based or something else. But speak to that, because there are people out there that I know that could be watching that could either be victims, or there could be people out there, that parents or loved ones, that don't want their folks to be victims as well. And so kind of tell us a little bit about what you do there.
Yeah, so when I was back in Georgia, we started hosting events, educating the community and our faculty, staff, and students on the topic of child sexual abuse. I had connected with a nonprofit back in Atlanta, and actually that topic itself had become a topic that people were willing to start talking about. Human trafficking, sex trafficking, everybody kind of calls it something different.
Right.
Child sexual abuse, victimization, molestation, that kind of stuff. It was starting to become okay. People don't want to hear about it. People don't want to talk about it. It's a sensitive matter. So there's a program that came through one of the Georgia Advocacy Centers, and it's a program called Darkness to Light. You guys can look it up online. It's d2l.org, and there's a ton of information on there. There's well over 50, there's like 50 to 100 trainers of this program back in Georgia alone, and there are thousands of people who've already been through the training. The training is an awareness type of training, identification, recognition. It's not going to train you how to be an expert on recognizing child sexual abuse,
Right.
but it takes a look at the big picture of what is child sexual abuse,
Right.
what kind of situations can your child or children that you work around be in. Just really makes you more aware of what's going on around you. So I became involved with that in Georgia, and I got here and I did a little bit of research. There were only 2 trainers in Utah.
Right.
And to me, that was not going to work.
No.
Especially because what I had learned about Utah was that it's a very family-oriented state.
Right.
You know, a lot of people here have children. In fact, I'm kind of the outcast, or I'm not the norm. I don't have any children.
Right, right.
So that's been interesting. But like I said, when I got here, there were only 2 trainers, and there were only about 50 people in the entire state trained on this awareness program. And so I brought it to the attention of my criminal justice department, and I said, hey, I'm going to try to write a grant for this so that we can get trained. So I wrote a grant, got it accepted. We had 10 more people trained through our school, through UVU, and now we teach it in some of our classes.
Oh, wow.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get child sexual abuse as a topic of conversation that people
Right.
can talk about and not feel ashamed about. And we want to be able to give victims their voices.
Right.
And by doing this program at our school, we're empowering our students. Some of them are victims.
Right.
I've actually had students here in Utah and back in Georgia. I had many more in Georgia. But here in Utah, I think people are still ashamed to even talk about it.
Sure.
And that's sad because they need to be empowered. They need to be given their voice. They need to be told, hey, it's okay that you were a victim. We're going to help you from here, and we're going to give you those resources. So we're starting to teach this a lot more at Utah Valley University. Nobody else is teaching it, so I was excited to be able to kind of lead the movement on it. Hopefully, it'll gain some traction.
Who in the and just a broad question? Who, and we're talking to Marcy. We're talking about her involvement in sexual abuse. Basically, we talk about the whole human trafficking topic here in Utah because our Attorney General is kind of big into that, obviously. But there are a lot of people. There are a lot of friends on my Facebook. In fact, one in particular, I can't remember her name right off. But there's a lot of organizations in Utah that go and get sexually abused people or children outside of the United States.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
This is more for people here that are dealing with some of the issues that they're having to deal with here, right?
Yeah, the training that we're doing focuses on teaching.
Not that either or are bad or good. It's just
Right.
that I think interesting that yours is homespun to
Yeah.
be able to deal with the issues
Yeah.
right here, right now.
Yeah, I mean, we really need to look out for our own communities as well. Not that we also need to look out for other communities, but we've got to start here. We have
Right.
to start laying the foundation and the groundwork here, to help kids in these communities, because we are recognized as my last research was we're the #1 state in the United States on child sexual abuse, and to me, that does not resonate well with me.
Okay,
So
#1, yes, #1 in what category? That per capita we are the highest rate of sexual abuse?
Yes.
Okay, hopefully people are listening to that because that's something. So the program, you're trying to hit it at the victim level as well as the predator level and as well as the maybe the judicial level. Is there something like that, or is it mostly for who would you have come in and who would you have come in and train or would you send those trainers out to talk to communities and neighborhoods and police departments for that matter?
Honestly, it's for everybody. It's everybody can benefit from it. If you have any contact with a child or children, you
Right.
can benefit from the training.
Right.
If you want the training, people can be in touch with me and I can be your trainer.
Right.
We normally have to have a minimum of 10 people
Right.
in a group. So through Project Overwatch, one of the things that we're going to start doing is I'm hopefully going to get some grants to be able to pay for the training
Right.
to put into our police departments locally
Right.
here in Utah. From my understanding, one of the young ladies that came through training with us was saying that the K-12 system in Utah is going to have to start training their faculty members as well And that's kindergarten through 12th grade, on child sexual abuse. So maybe it's starting to become a topic of conversation. I know human trafficking and sex trafficking are, because Sean Reyes is pushing it,
right,
from the Attorney General's office. I actually contacted them to set up a meeting, and they have responded back. So I'm hoping that they can help push this training as well.
For our viewers and listeners and all that, what's the difference between, well, when they say, a lot of people say human trafficking, what is that? What is that for people to,
sure. Human trafficking is more revolving around the area of maybe selling a child for profit. Maybe a person selling themselves for a profit.
Right.
Okay. So, for instance, as I've done this training, I've had someone come to me and say that their parents trafficked them as a child to pay for a bill. So they basically said, here's my child. You can have your way with them, and that will meet our
the obligation,
our bill. And
nice.
Unfortunately, that happens in our own communities. It happens
right.
not only here in Utah, it happens everywhere. The bottom line is we just have to start making a difference here in our own community. We have to make it okay to talk about.
And how do you do that? Or how do we do that? How do we get people to talk? I mean, obviously rape and those types of crimes and a lot of the sexual abuses, run the gamut from, unlawful sexual intercourse to, touching, improper touching, those type of things. How do we get people to come out and talk? How do we get people to even report it?
Ooh, that's a tough question, because a lot of people don't report it until they're, older. And there are so many elements to that. That's why, for me personally, I'm glad that I can teach it on the educational aspect to my students. And some of the students I don't know, because they're not my normal students. I'll go into
right.
another classroom and teach another faculty member's class, which like next week I'll be doing 2 classes. So I'll go in and hopefully I'm empowering them to go out. Once the class is done, they all get a certificate of training.
Right.
And then they get information that they're able to go out in the community. If they are a victim, I leave them with resources as well. So we're not just saying,
right.
okay, yeah, you might be a victim, or maybe now you have your voice. Because that's what happens. You let them know it's okay, they will open up if they feel comfortable enough.
Right.
But we can't live in a society where we say, we're going to keep this amongst our family in our house, we'll deal with it this way.
Right.
No, you have to make it okay to talk about. You have to acknowledge a child and say, my child is a victim. Doesn't matter your relationship to the perpetrator.
Right.
The child's a victim.
Right.
If you don't have that conversation with the child, you have to gain that trust factor and let them know you can have that conversation.
Right.
And that's key, is communication.
Maybe we can come and, only be maybe half hour, 45 minutes, but I know your training you probably have several blocks of training, don't you?
Yeah, it's a 2.5 hour training.
It might be fun just to come and show a little bit of it, maybe the end or something, to kind of get awareness, if you wouldn't mind. Maybe, putting you on the spot, but I think that would be something that, I know I get phone calls, I get messages, I get texts all the time.
Sure.
What do I do? And that's...
Yeah.
That's the question, what do I do? And it's always, well, we got to report it. We got to somehow get you, I'll go with you. I'll find someone to go with you that makes you feel comfortable to go do it, whether it's a young, juvenile or whether it's an adult. So, no, that's really, so in your vision of visions, what do you see for that program? What do you see for that program eventually?
Honestly, I want more people to become trained here in Utah. And if we're only talking on a local level,
right.
I definitely want more trainers here in Utah to be able to get out. Churches should hear about this program. Most of the people I work with go to church.
Right.
And even they say to me, everybody in our community needs to hear about this. They need to know about it. They need to be educated on it.
Maybe we need to start knocking on the LDS Church's doorstep, because not that it's a bad thing, but there really needs to be some kind of, I've been in and out of the church for a long time and understand that there's not a whole lot, there's neighborhood watch, but there's not a whole lot of talk about, sexual abuse and things like that.
That's in all churches too.
I think
it's important to definitely reach that. any organizations that have children involved in them, childcare, any advocacy groups.
Right.
You know, people need to be trained on it. If you teach Sunday school, I used to teach Sunday school, and I teach the youth program. And after I got trained on this, it's video-based, but it's also group-based, because we'll show video clips, and then you have conversations with whoever's in your group.
Right.
And you start talking about it, and it opens dialogue, and everybody who's uncomfortable now gets comfortable talking about it.
Is there a workplace element to it for businesses and things like that, or you just carry it over basically and adapt it to businesses?
Yeah, it's adapted to different population of who you're teaching it to. So yeah, like I said, anyone can contact me. I'm happy to talk to them about it if they're looking for a trainer.
How do they get a hold of you?
They can email me or I don't know that if I give my phone number out, maybe my phone will blow up.
Maybe an email. Maybe just text me your email, and I'll put it up with. I'll put it up with everything that we put up today, and we'll show this show not only once, and I'll give you a copy of it, and you can send it out as well, you know, to kind of help people out.
The more people we educate, the more people we empower. That's the bottom line.
Right.
Because then you make it okay for a victim to come forward and talk about it. And you also make it okay for people that have children to recognize that they need to talk to their kids about this. Right. That it is a subject matter that needs to be addressed.
As a cop, you're once a cop, always a cop. I think what has were the sexual abuse cases or the cases involving children probably the hardest for you, or what were the hardest for you?
I have to think about that.
Put you on the spot, I guess.
Yeah, the case that always comes to mind is that the hardest case. I had two hardest cases. One was a vehicle on fire with folks in it that you couldn't do anything about, and then the other one was a child shot with a shotgun in his face. And I was the first responder for that. Oh, nice. And he was actually killed by his little brother, who just happened to find the shotgun under his bed. Oh. And so those two really resonate with me. Right. I didn't work crimes against children because it just was not a job that I was interested in, because it takes a special person to do that.
I lasted a month.
So yeah.
I lasted a month.
Yeah.
And that they get me out of here. Yeah. I wanted to hang them up, especially the men.
Yeah.
You want to hang them up because they're typically the predators.
Yeah. It takes a special person to work in crimes against children. But now that I'm kind of doing this, teaching this, I do enjoy teaching it. Right. If I can make a difference in one person, then I'm doing a good job. So.
Other things you're working on? I'm putting you on the spot again.
I'm working on a grant with Orem Police Department.
Oh.
They're trying to get some funding for some equipment. I am working on developing an Explorers program with Ogden Police Department.
Wow, up in Ogden, okay.
Up in Ogden, yeah. So working on that through Project Overwatch, which is really exciting. Right. I run an honors program at school for criminal justice students. We have some forensic science students in it, so I'm the advisor for that. That's a nationally based club called Alpha Phi Sigma. Right. I am I'm the co-director for community outreach for Team Red, White, and Blue. That's a veterans organization.
We've had a couple bets on, and we've got a lot of vets that watch. So, that's cool. So yeah, I'm busy doing that kind of stuff, and pretty much any volunteer projects that come up, I love doing them with my students or with RWB. I'm taking some students to National Police Week in DC. Taking some Utah students to do that. That's next month.
Yeah,
May. Next month.
So we're gonna we'll be up there for a few days, and that's gonna be awesome. So
what do you tell people that want to be a police officer? What do you tell them?
I tell them it's the best job ever.
Best job ever.
Yeah, it was. I loved being a police officer, But then I got.
It really is.
And even
it's when you get involved in politics that you get.
Yeah. It's okay to be the little guy.
But you got a great program going on down there. If there's young people watching that would want to get involved, Utah Valley University now. What do you tell them?
Yeah, so we actually have a post academy in our department. So I tell them.
And that's Peace Officer Standards and Training.
Yes, sorry.
They get their license that way.
Yes. If you want to be a certified peace officer in the state of Utah, you go through a police academy. Right. One of the things that I will always tell kids if they come up to me and ask me about law enforcement is that it's the best job. It's awesome. It's a thankless job, and you are not going to be appreciated.
Right.
There's a high possibility the public is going to criticize everything that you do, but if you serve with passion, then you're doing a great job. Go with your heart. You will help somebody. There's one case I always remember helping, and I'm sure that I helped more than one person in my 10-year career.
Right.
But there's one case that I remember that just stands out, and that was that I made the first elder abuse case in the state of Georgia that was prosecuted, and got a conviction of 20 years.
Wow.
And so he's still serving time, and that is the one remarkable story that I always remember.
That's one crime that we don't talk a lot about. About sexual abuse. We don't talk about elder abuse very much, and it happens. It is rampant.
Yeah, at our police department, we actually started a special victims unit,
right?
And we have a detective that only focuses on elder abuse cases. And so we actually, our community was starting an elder court to focus on just those cases because it's been so prominent. You just don't hear about it.
No, because it's family. It's family taking advantage of family a lot of times. That's horrible.
And a lot of times it's parallels very much with the victimization of young kids.
Right.
So it's family oriented.
Well, you've been a good guest. You've been fun. We'll have to have you. I'd love to come see. I'd love to capture just a few minutes of what you're doing with sexual abuse stuff, because there really isn't anybody that I don't talk to, friends, people that come up to me or whatever it might be, that don't talk about some type of issue that's had to do with a sexual nature that hasn't been appropriate or whatever it might be, and it's something that really needs to be talked about. That's why I was excited. It's exciting to see you've come to Utah, integrated into Utah. I mean, it's a tough culture to integrate, but you're at a great university, and I wish you all the luck in the world, and hope to have you on again in that class. Anything, any ending words or anything like that? Any motivation? This is a motivational program.
Man, let me tell you, if I gave you my life story, you'd probably be a little surprised. But one thing that I can tell you is that faith is what has gotten me where I am today. And not just faith, religious faith. We're talking faith in yourself, right? Yes. Talk about that just for a minute as we, tell me about that. What you've been, the lows of the lows, the highs of the highs. Sure. What's kept you in the game, At one point in my life, I had $5 to my name and no place to live. And that's when I made the decision to join the military. And that just came from perseverance. That came from me acknowledging that people didn't believe in me, but that I needed to believe in myself. Right. And I have well surpassed my own expectations. And I tell everybody, anyone that knows me knows it's been a hard road. I never thought I'd even have a 2-year degree, let alone a PhD, And I just told myself that I am not going to quit. It may take me forever to get where I'm going, but I'm going to get where I need to be. And then I'm going to be put in the place that I'm supposed to be. And so faith is what I ride on, and I believe in myself. And I surround myself by amazing friends who, they cheer me on with everything I do. Pretty important, isn't it? Absolutely. Friends, yes. And who you surround yourself with. So if you surround yourself by like-minded people, you can just reach for the stars. Get a 1-year plan, get a 3-year plan, get a 5-year plan. And always keep having and updating those plans. Make goals, and you can get there. And there's not much more I can say about that one. Let me see if we can get us both in there. There we go. I just want to thank you, Marcy. I appreciate it. It's Dr. Marcy, okay, for you guys out there. Thanks for spending some time with us. Yeah, we will take, hopefully we'll take you out. We'll get down there and show a little bit of that and have you on again one more time. Thanks, everybody, for watching. You're watching The Daily Bend. And again, we'll have this loaded up. And we thank you for watching. This is one of those, people telling their stories, people telling their motivations on what they've been doing and how they've done it. And that last bit of
that last tidbit of advice is golden, and I'll try and highlight that one when I throw it on Instagram. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Remember, it's all about the bend.